For so many years, so many Etsy sellers have been told that the one way to success is to niche down, to get really, really specific about the product that they sell, or the really specific subset of their audience that they sell to, aka their niche, right? And they've been taught that that's the only way to success, and they've got to go really, really hard in that area. They've got to stay in their lane, stay in their little box on the internet. They can't branch out of it because that is going to be a recipe for disaster, and they're never going to succeed if they do that. And it's a really weird piece of advice, in my opinion, because if you think about some of the biggest brands in the world, none of them do that. That is not the way that big brands operate, right? Big brands don't niche down into a product. They get really, really clear on who their person is, who they are for, what they stand for, what they make that person that they are for believe and feel and why they want to keep coming back time and time again to this brand. And that's what I really want to go into in this video today. And I want to walk you through what the niche trap actually is, how it is actually holding you back, and how you can actually grow a business on Etsy without having to feel like you've cut off half of your arm because you have to not sell specific products, or you have to not talk about certain things on socials because it's not relevant to your audience, and it makes you feel really boxed in and rubbish. Because if you're anything like me, you've probably felt like that a few times over the years, and maybe you've even ended up with multiple Etsy shops as a result, like I have, because you felt like you couldn't branch out, you couldn't evolve, you couldn't turn your business into something bigger. And look, these brands absolutely know what they're doing. I worked for multiple multi-million-pound brands here in the UK while I was building my Etsy shop on the side, and before I went full-time and on Etsy and started mentoring. And so I got a real look behind the scenes at how these brands actually come up with these strategies, how they figure out who to sell to, how to figure out what they should be known for and things like this. And so that's what I really want to teach you, not just in this video, but across all of my videos, across my courses and things like that as well. Everything that I teach is rooted in this big brand customer first strategy, because I think that it is going to really help to unlock something for you and make you stop feeling like you have to be kept in this box forever, right? So if that sounds good, what I will do is I will walk you through some examples, and I will give you a framework to figure out the golden thread between your multiple passions and how you figure out what you want to be known for your customer. So let's dive in. Now, I want to preface this first bit by saying that I absolutely hate the word niche, and I think that might be what actually triggered this video in the first place, because every time I see someone teaching about the niche, about how to niche down, it really triggers me, and I think the word just offends me now because it makes me so mad and it makes me so upset that so many sellers are potentially missing out on building beautiful, big, amazing brands because they are so focused on their niche. So let's start by thinking about some of the big brands out there. If we take Nike, for example, Nike don't just sell trainers. They sell self-belief, identity, ambition. If we take Disney, for example, they don't just sell films, or make films, they are selling imagination, they are selling family connection, they are selling nostalgia. If we take Apple, they don't just sell laptops, they're selling creativity, they're selling innovation, they are selling simplicity. And these are really big brand examples, right? But these are just examples of brands that are not selling a product, they are selling the person and the identity and the feeling of their brand, right? The product is the vehicle and the brand is the connection piece. And so that leads me on to the reason that you might be watching this video, which is probably that you are feeling a bit restricted, you're maybe feeling a bit confused about what you can and can't sell, you are thinking of starting a second shop because you don't think that the thing that you want to sell makes sense in your shop. And so let's break that one down too. And so one of the reasons that I hate the word niche is because it gets people stuck into a box, right? And so the first layer of that box that most people get stuck into is the product niche, right? So I sell printable wall art and that's all I can sell. I can't branch out of printable wall art because that's what I sell. And that's where most sellers are getting stuck. Or it might even be that some sellers get stuck with I sell print on demand products. And so I am specializing in mugs and I just sell mugs. And again, that's another real product trap. That's not what we want to do. And then the next layer down is the audience niche. And this is better, but this is where people get stuck in thinking I sell planners, so the product niche, for ICU nurses. And it's like an audience niche, right? So I've got really, really specific about the subset of my audience and it's only ICU nurses. And we're closer at this point, but again, this starts making people feel quite boxed in and restricted, because then what if they start thinking, well, I want to sell journals and I want to sell badges and I want to sell stickers for ICU nurses, or I also want to sell stickers and planners and journals for doctors, right? I had some ideas for that, but maybe that needs to be a different business. And this is why the products niche and the audience niche gets people trapped. And so what I want you to think about instead of your products, your audience, is your overall brand. And now a lot of people think that brands are like fonts and logos and things like that, but your brand is so much more than that. Your brand is what helps you to stand out, to make people see what you are known for, to make people understand that you are the one for them. And you want to start thinking in brand terms when it comes to approaching your business. And so to give you an example of that, if we think back to the printable wall art products niche, right? The product niche was I sell printable wall art. And then the audience niche might have been, so if we give an example for printable wall art, I create wall art for first-time homeowners who want their home to feel personal, right? We're getting a bit closer, but we still feel a little bit boxed in. So then if we take that a layer deeper to the brand level, and I've got my trusty notepad here so I can remember what I wrote, we might say something like, I create playful, nostalgic home decor for people who want their home to feel like a reflection of their personality. Do you see how that last one gives you so much more room and so much more opportunity to create multiple different types of products, to branch out from that one really specific like new homeowners niche, or that one really specific I just sell printable wall art niche? Like there is so much more opportunity in that last line to open up to all of the different things that you might want to create for that person. And so that might now be making you think, well, that sounds great, but there is no way that you can link, these three passions that I have together into one shop. Like it wouldn't make any sense because they're totally different, right? Well, that is where you're wrong. I have got a little strategy, a little framework for you to walk through here that is going to help you to figure this out for yourself. Whether you already have a shop, multiple shops, whether you're thinking of starting a shop, this is a really good exercise to do for everyone. And it's something that I do pretty regularly to make sure I'm not feeling like I'm cutting off that part of my arm or part of my soul that I really want to talk about. So I call this the golden thread, and this is the thread that weaves between all of those things that you are passionate about, the people that you want to serve, the feelings you want to give them, and the brand that you want to create. And what we want to think about is 3 buckets, right? The first one is, what is it that you obsess about? What does your Pinterest feed look like? What could you talk about day in, day out? What do you spend your time doing? What is the first thing that you want to do in the morning when you open your eyes if you didn't have to go to work that day? What does your Instagram saved folder look like? What does your home feed look like? When you go to explore, what are the things that are coming up, the core topics? Because these are the things that will form the core of your brand. These are the things that are, essential to your personality, essential to what it is you want to be known for. So write them all down and they are your starting point. The second thing you want to start thinking about is, who is your person? So this is the next bucket that's going to make up your brand. So you might want to start thinking about who you naturally are drawn to creating for. Where are you experienced with certain types of people? Do you identify in a certain way or with a certain group of people? Anything that really makes you feel part of something is going to be a pretty good starting point for the type of person that you want to create for. And at this point, I'm not talking about I create for women aged between 55 and 75 in the UK. Like, they are demographics, they are interesting to know about your customer, but that's not what we're talking about here. We want to get specific about, like we were saying before, that ICU nurse. Maybe that's what you are. Maybe you are an ICU nurse and you're like, I have all of this knowledge and information and anecdotes. So you really want to start thinking about that subset of the audience that you might already have thought about when you were thinking about niching down to only serve that person, but really start to think about what other things is she as well. And then the third part to think about is what transformation you want to create for that person. So people are not just buying products, they are buying solutions, they are buying desire, they are buying a feeling, they are buying a benefit, they are buying something that they want to feel and achieve by the end of using or owning your products, right? And so if I give you an example, I love my dogs, I love millennial humor, I love home decor and decorating my home, I love aesthetics, I love typography, I love good design. And so all of those things might combine into me starting to create for the millennial dog mom who is looking for a product that is not just the average kind of cheesy thing that you can get on the high street that looks like a cartoon of a dog with a cheesy slogan on it and really clashes with the colours of their living room. Like, they are looking for something a little bit sleeker, a little bit cooler, a little bit more stylish, maybe even with a specific funny slogan that only millennials say. You can kind of see where I've gone from a passion and a few different passions and ideas that I had into the kind of customer that makes sense, which is basically me. Like, you can be your customer, right? Not everyone will be creating for themselves, but in this example, I am creating for myself. And when I started to create prints that I wanted in my own home, shock, horror, they started to sell because I may or may not have already created this brand, right? And then you can really see the solution, the outcome, the feeling, right? I want to feel a part of something. I created a dog brand because I didn't think there was any dog brands out there that really felt like me. I didn't feel like there was a part of a community on the internet or a part of the internet that love their dogs but also think they're little shits and really like to swear a little bit and have millennial sort of humor and find memes funny and jokes funny, millennial type of jokes funny. And then they also have a certain design style and aesthetic, right? But let's be honest, we are not having a unique experience on this floating rock, right? We are all, if we have felt something, if we identify in a certain way, if we feel a certain way, there are other people that feel like that too. And so you can be your own niche, right? You could be the person that you are creating for. That is absolutely okay too. But hopefully you can see how we've gone from selling Principal Wall Art to really understanding the customer we are selling for and the transformation we want to create for her and how we can create hundreds of products for that person. Because right now I have, just wall art prints in the space that I have decided to create this new shop in, but I could really branch out to many, many different things. And there's so many other brands that do this, right? So let's think about a few different examples of brands that do this really well. If you have heard of Wolf and Badger, they are a cool online brand and they don't just sell jewelry, which maybe on the surface you might think that they do. They are for people who want unique, independent and ethical brands and instead of like mass produced stuff, right? They kind of look like if you pulled a load of cool stuff from Etsy and put it under one roof. That's what Wolf and Badger are like. Same with somewhere like Oliver Bonus, right? Slightly different target customer maybe, but quite a crossover to be fair, and could genuinely be a pull down of loads of cool shops from Etsy put under one roof in Oliver Bonus. If we think about Coconut Lane and Cocopup London, they are the same brand. And to be honest, every time I think about this, I think they could have just stayed as one brand. And maybe, they wish they had, maybe they're glad they didn't. But Coconut Lane is a sort of millennial, Gen Z, like very on trend, trendy. They were pretty much always known for their phone cases, but then they branched out into like laptop cases, makeup bags, wash bags, jewelry. They've got like a charm studio now. They've got all sorts of like home decor-y little bits as well. And then what they did was they sort of saw a subset of their own market that were dog mums and created a whole new brand for them. But again, this could have been all set up under one brand because it's the same customer, just one's got a dog and one doesn't, right? Or one's got a dog. For me, for example, I buy from Cocopup and Coconut Lane because I am their customer across both of those things. So they could have actually had one brand, but they chose to go two ways. And it'd be interesting, not that I'll ever find out, but it would be interesting to know if they regretted that, right? And one of the reasons I think that would be interesting is because I actually regret the way that I've built my businesses, because what I did was I followed the typical niche down advice. And I don't know why I did it because I did know better, but I did anyway. And I spent so many years building up my wedding shop. I went through all different types of products in that shop. I, pivoted and I adapted and I evolved as my brand changed, as my style changed, as what I wanted to be known for changed. And then when I went full-time in my business, I was so scared of messing things up that I didn't want to, cause myself any problems. I also didn't want all my eggs in one basket, to be fair. And I basically had a crossroads. When I went full-time, I was wanting to branch out a little bit. I didn't want to have all my eggs in one basket, and I had two choices. My choices were to start promoting outside of Etsy and to start building my brand outside of Etsy, because when I went full-time, I was just selling on Etsy, or it was to start tapping into the mentoring side of things like I am doing now, because I really, really missed the marketing side of my job because it was what I'd done for 10 years and then it suddenly had gone, and I realized my Etsy shop wasn't a full-time job. And so I thought I'd really like to start sharing everything I know about marketing product brands to other small business owners, because I want small business owners to know what the big brands know. And so I made a decision and I decided to start an Instagram account about, sharing my tips about selling on Etsy. And so that is what this business is today, the small business. And I have, been growing this for the last 3 years, and I absolutely love what I do here. And then I decided last year that I wanted a creative outlet that felt a bit lower pressure, because again, my Etsy shop is my full-time business. I don't want to do things that will rock the boat. And so I started a second Etsy shop, which was selling dog wall art prints. And I absolutely love creating for this shop. It feels so light, so low lift, so easy. And then again, I just thought afterwards, when I came to setting up things like social accounts and starting to make sure that I had a brand presence outside of Etsy as well, I was like, I don't post on any of my social channels enough. Imagine if I just had one place where I could talk about all of those things. And so you might be thinking, yeah, this is all great, but I love baking and dogs and home decor, and those three things don't go together, and you're in the same boat as me and you want to start creating 3 different businesses. But the reason that that keeps us stuck is because that's looking into the interests as categories instead of looking at the actual reason behind why you love each thing. And if I'd have done this exercise that I'm about to share with you first, I think that I would have been in a much better position to keep all of these things under one roof. Because if you do look at my businesses from the outside, they do look quite disconnected, right? I have the wedding stationery shop, which is my top 0.1% shop, and that is really automated at this point. It works for itself. And then I started the September Hound, which obviously needs a lot of love and nurture and attention because it's a brand new shop and I haven't quite figured out what works and what doesn't work yet. And then I have this space, the small businesses, the seller society, teaching small business owners everything I know about marketing their products, selling their products, making money on Etsy and online in general. And so on paper, none of that looks like it belongs together, but the underlying thread, when you look closer, it was always there. It's creativity and aesthetics and helping people to build something meaningful, whether that is through my wedding stationery, whether that is through my wall art prints, whether that is through helping you to sell things in your business. I have always been drawn to taking someone's idea and turning it into something beautiful, turning it into something that works, turning it into something that they love. I've always been really into understanding what makes people emotionally connect with a brand. That's what a decade of working in marketing for brands like Asda and Giacomo and JD Williams and Thomas Cook and Subaru and all of these brands that I've worked on has taught me. Whether I was selling wedding stationery or wall art or digital products to help you in your business, the product changed, but the motivation behind why I wanted to do what I was doing never actually changed. And so that's why I care about this so much, and that's why I wanted to create this video, because I've spent years separating myself into different boxes, into different parts, because I felt like that was the right thing to do, and I think that there is a much better way. Becoming your brand, becoming the brand yourself is the better way. So if you are struggling to find the golden thread between your products, then there's something I want to suggest to you. There is a theory, I think it's called something like the 5-question theory, and I think it was the guy who set up Toyota or started Toyota, I believe, who basically says that you ask yourself why 5 times, every single time. So if you say, I love dogs and home decor and ICU nurses, that's your 3 things that you've kind of pulled together. For each one, you're going to ask yourself why you love that, right? Why you're passionate about that, why you want that to be part of what you do. And I'm not saying that every single passion and hobby and skill is going to make sense under one business, and maybe some parts of your hobbies and passions and skills you actually don't want to have in your business, and that's okay too. But what you're going to do is you're going to take each one, you're going to ask yourself why you love it, why you want it to be a part of what you're doing. And then you're going to get your answer, and then you're going to ask why again, right? And you're going to get the answer again, and you're going to ask why again. And you're going to keep asking yourself why 5 times, 10 times, 100 times, however many times you need to. Keep asking, but why? To find the golden thread between each one. And so if we take the ICU nurse, it might be, well, okay, why do I want ICU nursing to be at the forefront of my business? Well, because I'm an ICU nurse and I think that there is a demand for this subset of the market. Okay, but why? Well, I think there's demand for it because there's a lot of humour on the wards. There is a lot of, it's really difficult, it's really stressful, it's very hard. And so there has to be a level of, British humour going on in the staff room because we have to keep ourselves sane somehow. And I think that there is a market for that. Okay, but why? Well, because, it's really difficult being an ICU nurse and the humour keeps us going, and that humour really is a kind of bonding moment for me and the rest of the team. And I know that when we buy gifts, we are looking for something that means something. And so that bonding moment comes in again there. And so if you keep going down and keep going down and keep going down to why, and you did that on why you love home decor and why you love dogs and this, that, and the other, you will eventually get to the same answer. That is the theory of the 5 whys, that if you keep asking yourself why, you will come to the same answer in the end. And so when you get that same answer, that's where you've found your golden thread. So if we go back to my dog brand example, I realized that I wasn't just creating dog wall art and for all dog owners. I was creating for the dog owners who secretly felt like they didn't belong to any sort of subset of the market. They didn't belong in the typical dog owner world. The ones who love their dog but don't want a giant personalised caricature photo of the dog on the wall. They love interior design, they love on-trend designs, they love beautiful things, they love an aesthetic home, but They want to be able to show their personality and their love of their dog through that, and there wasn't that subset of the market for them. That is a brand. The golden thread is the dogs, the designs, the personality, and the belonging. And so if you can get to that level of like a really simplistic pull together thread of those things that you love, that's your brand, and that's where you can start from. And you can, again, really see how you can branch out in so many different ways from those ideas. So just to wrap up, why does this even matter? The reason I genuinely feel passionate about this is because I honestly think that the brands that are generic, the brands that are niching into, you know, generic designs on mugs, or even just like cat people mugs, they're great. But in 2026 and beyond, when in a world of AI, where AI is going to start making things even easier making it even easier for people to create products, people to start selling on Etsy, then you are going to need a differentiator. And a differentiator is going to be how you can make your brand stand out. A differentiator is going to be how you can make certain people feel about your brand, how you can tap into these feelings that your dream customer, the person that you're building for, has, and how you can make them want to choose you, how you can make them want to see your social media posts, to follow you on socials, to see your brand new products on Etsy, to buy everything you put out there, because they know that you're making it for them. That is one of the most important things you can do in 2026, because we are going to fast see a shift in the market. We're going to see people adding more and more products than ever. Like I say, as AI makes things so much easier for people to start listing and start creating products, and you and your brand differentiator are the only things that are going to help you stand out. So to wrap it up, you don't need to choose between your passions. You don't need to choose one thing that lights you up and forget the rest. You don't need to cut tiny pieces of yourself away to build a successful Etsy business. You just need to find the thread between the things that connects those things and build a brand around the person that also enjoys all of those things with you. I'll see you in the next one.